You're listening to the RTI Press Pass powered by Rocky Top Insider.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the Rocky Top Insider Press Pass podcast. My name is Rick Butler. Joined with me, as always, that is Ryan Sylvia. Ryan, man, the final regular season press pass of the year. I cannot believe how long that we've been doing this throughout the season. It's obviously been a joy to have you join our team throughout all of these so far this year, but it's a little bittersweet. We'll obviously have an off-season a pre-postseason podcast, and then we'll get all of our bowl content ready as well. But, man, one more game for the Tennessee Volunteers, and it couldn't be a bigger one for either sides. Vanderbilt, Tennessee, in-state rivalry, playoff implications potentially on the line. Pride is on the line. Respect is on the line. This is for a series that, often just kind of comes down to the end of the schedule, and it's just going to be the Vanderbilt game. This one seems completely different for both sides, and a massive matchup is brewing in Neyland Stadium this weekend. But first, how are you doing, and happy early Thanksgiving?
I'm doing good. Happy early Thanksgiving to you and the listeners as well. It's been exciting. I think it was just looking at this Vanderbilt game, it was like if they lose to Florida, it's going to be tough for them to kind of roll over and show up for this Vanderbilt game. But you win in such an emphatic way in Gainesville. Now all of a sudden it's like, man, it feels like this team, when they had an excuse to kind of lie down and just get to the finish line, all of a sudden it's like, man, they got some juice in them. And I'm very interested to see how that works, because obviously the Vanderbilt team, that feels like they're playing with their season on the line.
Yeah, no doubt. And I do also think that that's an interesting point. Tennessee going to Florida last week, I don't want to say that we were questioning the just how much juice they would have under their sleeve, but it was something that at least you talked about, that you didn't want to not see it. Tennessee came out with their hair on fire, able to obviously blitz the Gators right out of the swamp, and that was a big one because Tennessee looked motivated. They looked fired up. Now, it is a little bit of a different situation this week. Again, I don't know last week how much breaking the streak really factored into things, but I think that it was on Tennessee players' minds, and you could hear that in some of the post-game content as well. This one's a little bit of a different, milestone, if you will. This is now you're hosting Vanderbilt, and you still don't have the same playoff implications on the line as maybe you did in games previously in the season. But not only does Tennessee have a chance to, put a big nail in the coffin of Vanderbilt's playoff chances, but again, like I mentioned at the top of the show, there's a lot of in-state pride and in-state, kind of moxie going on here. You think back to that Netflix documentary that came out. I don't even know when. Was it the summer? Was it the spring? Something around that. And you heard Vanderbilt's full and good intentions on how they felt about Tennessee. You heard Clark Lee, F Tennessee. I want to beat the brakes off of Tennessee. You heard Diego Pavia saying that. You go back to some of Diego Pavia's comments at the beginning of the season that said, hey, we want to run Tennessee. I think you wrote about it earlier in the week. Maybe even he said, we do run Tennessee. I'm not sure of the exact quote, so I don't want to misconstrue things there. But this is obviously a Vanderbilt program that has no good feelings towards the Tennessee Volunteers. And, they want to be able to take their rightful place on the throne of the Volunteer state. And so I think this is a big one for Tennessee. You don't necessarily have streak-breaking implications, but it's a battle for the Volunteer state and kind of a battle for the direction of, where both teams are headed.
Well, if you're Tennessee now, you're trying to defend your own streak, and it's not as long as the one that Tennessee had against Florida, because there was some slip-ups in the middle of that stretch for Tennessee in this series in games that they should have won. But you've built up a win streak now. Josh Heupel's never lost to Vanderbilt, and I'm sure that's something that is kind of a feather in the cap, I guess, of like, hey, you look at how you've done against your rivals. You've beaten Alabama twice. You've now won against Florida on the road, and you've won 3 of the last 4 against them. You're still trying to get over the hump against Georgia, but you can point to the Kentucky series as well, where you're now in what, you're 4 or 5, and you haven't lost a game to Kentucky. I think it's something that certainly even the players, it's like, hey, you don't lose to Vanderbilt, right? They're the talk to Jawan Jennings about it. He doesn't like those guys over West. He's got pride, and now he's an in-state kid, so it probably means a little bit more to him than it does to a guy from California or Florida or something. But I still think there is that aspect of it of like, hey, let's put those guys in their place. Now Vanderbilt's not those little guys in the SEC anymore. They're far from the worst team in the conference, but I still think if you're Tennessee, there is a bit of a mentality of like, hey, you run this state. You hear Jordan Matthews, former Tennessee DB who transfers to Vanderbilt. He says, I'm on the winning side of the rivalry now. You know, that's a objectively false comment, but also one that I think will fire up some of his former teammates. Like,
Yeah.
all right, you jump ship, that's fine. We understand it's the transfer portal, but why are you taking unnecessary shots now? It's just little things like that I think can kind of get under your skin if you're in that locker room. Not that it's the same as it was in the 90s and there's all that team pride and stuff like that, but there still is to a certain extent. I think it's kind of been enough from talking from the Vanderbilt side of things that I'm sure Tennessee will have that juice again this Saturday.
Yeah, no doubt about it. You know, you mentioned Juwan Jennings. This was something that we had kind of joked about in the text thread yesterday, but he had quite the eventful day on Monday Night Football against the Panthers. Not only did he score on the opening drive of the game, which was just a man's man of a touchdown. He caught the hitch pass maybe around the 5-yard line. 3 Panthers defenders swarmed him. He just brushed them off like they were nothing and then waltzed right into the end zone. Later in the game, he takes a cheap shot below the belt from a Panthers defender. Little while later, after the final whistle blows, he goes right up to him. He strikes him in the face, and they had to be separated. There were some San Francisco 49ers, personnel who threw Juwan Jennings to the ground, which, as the Panthers defender showed earlier in the game, is not the easiest thing in the world to do. We said, it's just Vanderbilt week.
Yeah,
Juwan Jennings is just fired up because it's Vanderbilt week. He doesn't like the Commodores. He wanted to score. He was imagining that the Carolina Panthers were the Vanderbilt Commodores. He wasn't going to let him out of the end zone. And then I'm sure he might have even been imagining, that one Panthers defender in specific who did hit him below the belt, a cheap shot. And I think the guys even got suspended here in the middle of the week for a little while. Maybe he's just imagining that he was his least favorite Commodore on that roster. So Juwan Jennings fired up about this game. We know that the Tennessee fan base is fired up about this game. Tickets are expensive. I know my family is in town for Thanksgiving. Thought about going to the game on Saturday. I'm not sure if they are or not. But my dad and I were on the phone yesterday. He was just saying, man, these ticket prices have been skyrocketing. So obviously a marquee game in what should be nice weather, cold, but should be nice weather. We're going to give you a little bit of a preview on the game today, just some of our early opening thoughts on the press pass. Not going to be the same length as the normal shows that we get to each week, but we're still going to get you all of our thoughts. Ryan Shumpert is feasting in Las Vegas right now, so he is not joining us. But man, he has had an exciting time covering the Players Era Tournament. Last night, thrilling victory, for the Tennessee Volunteers over number 3 Houston. Gets a little bit of payback from the Elite 8 loss to the Cougars back in Indianapolis earlier in the spring. And who knows, maybe that can be a win that catapults Tennessee into what is a tough non-conference slate coming up for the rest of the year of 2025. If you want to go and hear some of our thoughts after this about that game, the Houston game, you can go check out our RTI reaction show over on the Rocky Top Insider YouTube account. Otherwise, normal things as always. Super quick housekeeping this time. You know what it is. Pancakes and Bacon with VFL Kyler Kerbyson and Reed Bacon on Monday mornings. The Rocky Top Insider Press Pass on Wednesdays. The RTI Lowdown on Sundays. And, of course, the RTI Postgame Reaction Show on Saturday after the game as well. You can find them all wherever you get your favorite podcasts. You can find them all on the Rocky Top Insider YouTube account, which, by the way, has seen phenomenal growth this year. We're so thankful for all the people who have chosen Rocky Top Insider as their post-game destination, not only for press conferences, not only for weekly content, but of course, some of our post-game reactions as well. So with that all being said, Ryan, let's go ahead and get into this. November 29th, that is the day that everything goes down. 3:30 p.m. in Neyland Stadium on ESPN. Number 19 Tennessee hosts number 14 Vanderbilt. The Volunteers 8-3 on the year, 4-3 in SEC play. The Commodores 9-2 on the year, 5-2 in SEC play. The spread is 3.5 in favor of Tennessee. ESPN Analytics have Tennessee with a 57.6% chance to win. And in case you want to know who has more fans over on the ESPN app, it seems to be the Volunteers with 55% of the fan vote as things stand on Wednesday morning. We talk about Vanderbilt with a 9-3 record. A win over Tennessee would certainly be a great help into getting the Commodores in the playoffs, but they also need a little bit more around them as well. That being said, though, suffering a third loss would take them out of things pretty much completely, especially depending on what happens around the college football landscape coming up this weekend. So there is a lot on the line for both for Vanderbilt, but Tennessee can do a lot to ending those playoff dreams with a win coming up on Saturday evening.
Yeah, and it's also a game for Tennessee where if they win it, it's your biggest win of the year. Like if you're just looking at opponents, like the
Yeah, by
SEC
far.
teams they've beaten so far, not good. And that was something
Yeah.
we talked about going into the year. Is it's a pretty favorable SEC schedule. Like, of course, you play the Alabamas, you play the Georgias, you play Oklahoma, who are all top 10 teams right now. But outside of that, it didn't seem like it was going to be the toughest slate. And you look at Syracuse, and I'm curious what they would have looked like if Steve Angeli didn't get hurt this year.
Yeah.
I think it would have been a better team, but I still don't think it would have been some world beater. And so even your out of conference Power Four game wasn't the toughest opponent in the world. So you still are kind of looking, I don't want to say looking for your signature win. It felt like that Florida win last week is probably your quote unquote signature win. But if you can be Vanderbilt here, it's a big resume boosting win. Now, that resume boosting win is not going to get you in the playoffs. So does it really matter? No. But it'll probably get you finished much higher in the college football playoff rankings. You'll be one of the better teams to be left out of the picture. You would presumably jump Vanderbilt, and you would have a good chance to leapfrog a couple teams in front of you too, like a Texas maybe, who's probably going to lose this week to A&M. So you have that opportunity to, I don't think, make the playoffs. I think that ship had sailed when you lost that third game to Oklahoma. But you do have the opportunity to jump decently high in the rankings, be one of those first teams out of the picture, get to a good bowl game if that means anything to anyone anymore, and then just kind of go from there going to next offseason, which I do think is a somewhat of a big deal.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And so, we'll kind of move on past the implications of this game. I think those are well understood by now by both sides, really. Let's talk about the actual game and the personnel here involved. You want to start with Tennessee's offense or Tennessee's defense? Because obviously Diego Pavia is one of the big stories in college football right now.
Yeah, I think that's where it starts with Diego Pavia and how Tennessee's going to respond to him. Now, against Oklahoma, John Mateer is not as good of a runner as Diego Pavia. It's not as much of a threat with the legs, but he still is a really good runner, one of the better ones in the country. I thought Tennessee did a fine job in limiting what he did. Now, overall, it's an Oklahoma offense that's also much worse than Vanderbilt. So it's going to be a more difficult challenge for Tennessee to step up and defend Vanderbilt's offense and guys like Eli Stowers, and even the run game with Cedric Alexander has been good too. So you're going to have your hands full. But I do think it's somewhat encouraging against Oklahoma that you tackle better, you fit the run gaps better. Like you just did the basic things better that plagued them throughout this season. Against Florida, it wasn't perfect. That's a horrible offense at times, and you got a little bit of help with a penalty on that opening drive that maybe keeps them off the scoreboard because it would have been a big chunk play and things like that. But it was, I guess, again, a positive step in the right direction. So it's a Tennessee defense that's probably playing its best football of the season. That's not saying that they're a top 5 unit in the SEC or anything like that, but at least they're trending in the right direction, which gives you a little bit of hope. But it is, I mean, Diego Pavia's ability to run the ball, to throw the ball, to make the right reads, he is elite in that aspect. And it's going to be something that Tennessee, particularly the linebackers, you're going to need Arian Carter to play well, Jeremiah Thielander, Edwin Spillman, now a Jaden Perlotti, who's come on really strong. Those guys are going to have to play well. Your safeties are going to have to roll up in the box. Idris Farouk, Andre Turrentine are going to have to step it up in the run game. Your corners, which Colton Hood's been pretty good at locking down his edge, but they're going to have to step up. It's going to take all 11, and I'm curious to see how the defense does because that seems like the biggest key to the game for me right now.
Yeah, I think that Ty Redmond, is going to be a huge focal point in this game, just like he's been all season. And he has been good. He has certainly gotten better throughout the season. I mean, you just think about what that freshman, a true freshman, was thrust into at the beginning of the year, how he's responded. And there have been some times where, Georgia, just week 3 of the season, they picked him apart. They knew exactly where they wanted to go. But credit to that young man for kind of, not being discouraged by that. And I think he said it in an interview at some point in the season. He said, look, I play cornerback. I understand that guys are going to go at me, especially in the situation that we're in. I just got to keep growing and advancing. I do agree that this Tennessee defense is probably playing its best ball of the year. Two sides to that coin. They've let up 20 points in the last 2 weeks since the bye week, 9 against New Mexico State and 11 against Florida. But at the same time, it's New Mexico State and it's Florida. So on one side of the coin, it's like, okay, well, these two teams haven't been world beaters. What's going to happen when Diego Pavia and Vanderbilt roll into town? I do think that's obviously a little bit of a different world. But then at the same time, though, I am a strong believer in confidence and momentum. And I think
Mhm.
that those two things can help you out, especially, in sort of a condensed look at the schedule, more of a week to week basis than the whole season. I understand that confidence and momentum can have a lasting effect over a 14 week stretch, but I think especially from a week to week stretch, that sort of thing can help you give a boost in certain areas when you need it. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. It's just how Tennessee's defense continues to look. Now, one of the big things that you saw against Florida was that Tennessee did get a lot of guys back, who
Mhm.
maybe were a little bit banged up in the middle of the year, who sat out for the New Mexico State game because it really didn't matter if they played or not. That's a Joshua Josephs. That's an Arion Carter. Guys who certainly did make an impact in that Florida game as well. So I think now that the Tennessee defense is full healthy, I think you still have some reservations based on just things that you can't get out of your head from earlier in the season. But I do think that they're probably playing with a little bit more confidence, a little bit more momentum, and obviously getting some of those guys back helps. Now, Diego Pavia, for as annoying to opposing fans as he might
Mhm.
be, he is the real deal. Ryan Shumpert talked to Vanderbilt on Sports Illustrated, Vanderbilt on SI's Joey Dwyer, got a little bit of an insight on this Vanderbilt team. And I thought that one of the interesting responses that he had was to the question of how is Diego Pavia an improved player from last season. I'll sum up the first paragraph, and then read the second paragraph verbatim because I think it is a fascinating spot and something that Tennessee fans will want to know. On one hand, he said that Vanderbilt really kind of put an emphasis into surrounding Pavia with better talent this season, and particularly on the offensive line, giving him more time to sit back in the pocket, find receivers downfield, but then maybe even more lanes to kind of escape the pocket and scramble if he needs to. We know how big of a portion of Pavia's game that is, so they've given him a little bit of help there. And then he also talks about adding Trey Richardson on the outside. You know, giving Pavia the ability to, quote, no longer be Superman, at
Mhm.
all times. He's got help around him on the outside. But then here's what he says about Pavia himself. Quote, Pavia himself has significantly improved. He appears to be far more confident throwing the deep ball and makes more, quote, NFL throws than he did last season. I think his decision making has also improved. He's also much less reliant on his legs these days and doesn't have to leave the pocket to demonstrate his mobility. So this is going to be the real deal for Tennessee
Mhm.
to cover. I think that it's going to be interesting to see how Tennessee defensively and schematically approaches it. If they want to try to get pressure on Pavia and try to um, limit that window that he has to operate, if they want to get his decision making moving a little bit quicker, if they want to play a spy, if they want to drop a little bit more into the secondary in case the passing game as well. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how Tennessee kind of approaches Pavia from a defensive mindset. Because as you said earlier, John Mateer, I think that Pavia's passing game is a lot better than what Mateer's is. So he's got a couple different ways, to me, more that he can beat you.
Yeah, I think on paper you're like, just throw a spy at him, have Aaron Carter or someone or someone like that follow him around. But then that takes away a guy who can drop into coverage. It takes away a
Right.
pass rusher. It's just kind of a guy that, is hanging out around the line of scrimmage and can help kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out in those categories. But it's a QB spy. So it's his main job is to make sure Diego Pavia doesn't escape. And with the weapons that they've put around him, that just makes that job so much harder. And it puts so much more stress on guys like Ty Redmond, who, as you talked about, is improved and is taking a lot of steps in the right direction, but is still a true freshman and someone
Right.
that's going to have to go up against
Someone who's going
some
to be
good
picked on.
receivers. Yeah, so it's going to be an interesting game for Tim Banks. I thought Tim Banks called a fantastic game against Florida. I think he's done a much better job in the latter half of this season than the beginning half. But this is maybe one of his tougher challenges yet, just because of all the different ways Vanderbilt can hurt you, and how are you going to respond? How are you going to adjust? It feels like a game of adjustments. Maybe you come out in one way, and you're saying we're not going to let Cedric Alexander, we're not going to let Diego Pavia beat us on the ground. We're going to make him throw the ball. Well, if he starts beating you in the air, which he's capable of, you saw it last week against Kentucky. How are you going to respond? How are you going to adjust? It feels like a game that Tim Banks is going to have his hand full, and there'll be something to note, like kind of going around to halftime. Like, how is he going to adjust? How is he going to change things up? And what is this going to look like? Because it feels like Vanderbilt has the opportunity to go a bunch of different directions.
To put things in perspective, right? Deshaun Bishop has 143 carries on the season. We know that he's had, rotational action with Star Thomas and Peyton Lewis, a little bit of Dewan Morris last week.
Yeah.
He's got 143 carries. Diego Pavia's got 132. I mean,
Yeah.
only Pavia with only 11 less carries than Tennessee's lead running back. And again, in a rotational system, but still kind of puts into context just how willing he is to not only scramble out of the pocket, not only escape the pocket, but the sort of the design stuff that they do with him as well. Dangerous on his feet.
Yeah, he is, and that's once again, it's can you do the fundamentals? And he's if you can, it's such coach speak. I think Heupel said this exactly, but it's like do the basics at a high level, and you'll be fine. If you can tackle at a high level, you'll be fine. If you can have gap integrity at a high level, you'll be fine. I'm not saying you're going to completely limit him and you're going to exit that game when he's got 20 rushes for 15 yards or something like that, but you're going to exit the game going, hey, you gave the offense a chance. Maybe that's a good segue into the offensive side of things where for
Yeah.
me personally, I feel like after that Florida game, you have to have a lot of confidence in the offense again. Maybe you lost a little bit of confidence in Joey Aguilar after throwing 2 picks against Mexico State, after turning the ball over against Oklahoma, after being having a bad game against Alabama on the road, and the turnover issues are starting to show up. Now, he really only had to do much in the first half of that game against Florida before both teams decided they're ready to run the clock out and get to the finish line. But in that first half, he was phenomenal. And so I think that gives you optimism that he will be able to parlay that into another big game. And it seems like he's been very good in big moments besides, I guess, that Alabama and Oklahoma game. Like against Georgia, he rolled out there and he was fantastic. So I have faith in Joey Aguilar, but then also Josh Heupel as a play caller. He called a fantastic game
It was in
against
his
Florida.
bag.
It was unbelievable stuff. Probably his best half of calling plays of the year. And I think what's good about it is you took that 31 lead in the halftime. It was all vanilla in the second half. Even towards the end of the first half, it was like, hey, this win is all but in the bag. We don't have to go out and get tricky and do these different types of things. You saw that Mike Matthews, it was a direct snap to Deshaun Bishop, who hands it off to Joey Aguilar, who hands it off to Mike Matt. It was funky. It was the Ethan Davis touchdown
Yeah.
where you insert him as a blocker, which he's been so willing to do, and you've already gashed him on the ground. He just kind of slips out to the flat and he catches that screen and he's off to the races. It's those little wrinkles in the offense that make Heupel so deadly as a play caller, and he only had to show a handful of them. So I'm curious how much of that is still in the tank, how much of that from the preseason, hey, we want to try this, we want to try this. You haven't had a chance to. If you have anything left in the clip, it's time to let it fire out because this is the number one game on the schedule, bowl game. Who really cares? It's this game right now. Let everything you have fire.
Yeah, Josh Heupel needs to, and I can't necessarily do it on camera because A, this is going on YouTube. B, this is going on WATE 6 Plus, the smart TV app. But if you've ever seen Joshua Josephs after
Yeah.
a Max Gilbert field goal, you know what Josh Heupel needs to do. Fully unload the tank, on this play calling aspect on the Vanderbilt defense. And I do think that we're at an interesting point in the year where, boy, does Tennessee, I think, and I don't want this to get confused with it's always successful, but I think they understand what weapons they have and what they can do with each one of them.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Ethan Davis now being in the starting lineup in the wake of Miles Kitselman injury, and absolutely nothing to take away from Miles Kitselman, the leader that he's been, the veteran presence that he's been. He's been a reliable target, that Joey Aguilar has wanted to go to. But I think Ethan Davis now getting those first team snaps and that the majority of the role in the offense, I just think that gives you a lot more versatility in what he can do. So
Yeah.
you take an Ethan Davis that we saw against Florida and you give him more things to do. I think we understand what Tennessee's run game looks like. I guess we'll find out here on Wednesday night, tonight that we're recording this, what the injury report is going to look like with Peyton Lewis. But I think that you understand what your running backs look like. And then you have 3 receivers who, I believe Tennessee posted this yesterday, maybe the only team in college football right now to have 3 700+ yard receivers. And again, I'm not saying that it's always successful, but I think Tennessee has a good understanding of what each phase of that offense can be, and you're going to need all 3 parts. As much as we sit here and talk about you need the running game to go, you need the running game to go. Of course, you need the running game to go.
Yeah.
That's football, and we've been saying that all year. That's how Tennessee's offense operates. Which again, I don't want to downplay because I do think you need it, but I think you're also going to need the pass game to go as well. I think that Chris Brazzell, I'm calling my shot here. I think that Chris Brazzell has a statement game.
Okay.
Maybe not to the same level of 174 yards and multiple touchdowns that he had against Georgia, but I think that he has a statement game in this contest just a few days after the Bolitnikoff Award finalist comes out and he's not on the list. Maybe
Mhm.
he's a guy who takes that personally. Maybe he's not. I don't know. But I just think that Chris Brazzell has an opportunity to do something big, to finish this season like he started it in a primetime SEC football game. But I think that Tennessee is going to need all three components. And a lot of that kind of, who's kind of the middle area of the Venn diagram. You've got the running game, the passing game. Who's the middle area of that? It's Joey Aguilar, who sort of etched his name into Tennessee folklore with the win against the Swamp. He's going to be right smack dab in the middle of it. It's going to be a high level quarterback battle between Pavia and Aguilar. But I think Tennessee is going to need to be on that versatile wagon on offense if they want to have any chance of winning this ball game.
Well, I think it's Joey Aguilar and the offensive line in the middle of that Venn
Yeah,
diagram.
yeah,
I think
yeah.
you have to feel good about what the offensive line's done, even with Wendell Moy out against Florida. Technically available, he was on the sideline, he was dressed out, but they felt like Shamu Murad gave him a better chance to compete in that Florida game, given Wendell Moy's injury status of someone that was banged up that week. Shamim Murad played well, and Jesse Perry continues to play very well. And those are your two guards, and then Wendell Moy. We'll see if he can get back because he's been fantastic this year. Sam Pendleton, who's had some issues here and there, snapping the ball and things like that because it's a new position to him, feels like he's settled down a lot and been a lot better as of late. Your two tackles are playing fantastic with Lance Hurd on one side and a true freshman, David Sanders, who is kind of living up to the five-star expectations. Like, that's a really tough position to do as a true freshman, is to go out and play tackle in the SEC without having those kind of cupcake games either to get into it. His first snaps were on the road at Mississippi State, and he's kind of got thrown into the fire, and he's been great. And it's also a guy, too, where his entire life he's been playing left tackle, and you get to Tennessee, and Lance Hurd's got left tackle locked down. Hey, go flip out to right tackle for us. And he's done a
Yeah.
fantastic job of doing that as well. So I think you have to feel really good about what Tennessee has up front. It should help them once again establish the run. How do you establish the run? You get good blocking up front, and you open those lanes for Deshaun Bishop, for Star Thomas. I'm curious to see if it'll be Peyton Lewis, if he's able to go, because he's also been a guy who's young but has stepped up towards the latter half of the season. Or Dewan Morris, a true freshman who had a really good game against Florida, and so I think there's confidence there as well. But the offensive line, I too think gives you some hope that offensively you're going to be able to get the ball moving against this Vanderbilt team. It's, to me, the key. Once again, can you shut down Diego Pavia to a certain extent that gives your offense a chance to win it?
Talked a little bit about offense, talked a little bit about defense, and then you get to the third phase of the game, which, is where some of the breaks for this thing could be made. Special teams. Boo Carter out of the picture at punt return. I believe it was Dewan Morris that we saw fielding the punts last week.
Mm-hmm.
Josh Heupel talked about how he had earned the trust from the staff to do so. I don't think you have to get anything too fancy there. I just think that you can't put the ball in harm's way. You got to give it to your offense. With how high powered the offense has the ceiling to be, just can't have any big fundamental game changing mistakes right there. And then the kicking game. Max Gilbert. I have no idea what this game is going to look like. We've seen we all know about the high profile SEC game that happened at the beginning of the year where things were kind of things went south downhill. But I think you just got to go out there and do your job. I am no kicker myself. I understand that kickers are so easy to pile on because they only have one job. But you got to be able to go out there and do your job, especially when the guy on the other side of things for Vanderbilt is Brock Taylor. 51 of 52 for extra points this year, 10 of 11 from field goal attempts. And I don't know if you know this. I only figured it out this week, or at least I was reminded of it this week. You know where he went to high school?
I don't.
Knoxville Catholic.
Okay.
He's a Knoxville kid. Brock Taylor, the Vanderbilt kicker. A junior, 6'1" from Knoxville, Tennessee, who again has been very good this year. His long on the year is 51. Man, you got a Knoxville kid coming back to Knoxville. I just think that Max Gilbert has to go out there and do his job. So not to place everything on him, but special teams, just like any game, can be a differentiating factor when you have what I believe is going to be a pretty high scoring game. whether it be in terms of giving up the ball, whether it be in terms of putting yourself in good position, whether it be in terms of putting points on the scoreboard when things sort of run out of steam at some point before the red zone. Special teams just have to be sharp. And I think that this could be a game where that might even be magnified a little bit more.
Yeah, I just don't think you can go out there and say you left 6 points on the field because you missed 2 field goals or something like that, especially if it is a close game. Like, that's when it gets really frustrating. So, yeah, I mean, if Max Gilbert, it has been a great season for him. If he wants to get back on track and get back in the favor of a lot of people, this is a good game to do it. He's proven to be capable of making some big kicks, but he's also proven to be capable of missing some big kicks. So it'll be something to look out for in this game. And then Jackson Ross, after coming off SEC Special Teams Player of the Week, pinning 2 inside the 6-yard line, 1 at the 1-yard line.
Yeah.
He leads the country in punts down inside the 20-yard percentage of punts down inside the 20-yard line, over 50% of them. Now, a lot of that is to do with Tennessee's offense is good, so it's not like he's punting from his own, heels on the goal line a lot of the time. Usually it's, man, this offense stalled out around midfield at your own 40. You got a chance to go pin him inside the 20. But when he's been given those opportunities, he's done a fantastic job of doing it. Make Vanderbilt go the length of the field. As you said, you're DeJuan Morris. Don't give them the ball on a punt and muff it and let them take over inside the 30-yard line. Just get the ball to the offense and play a clean slate on special teams. It doesn't need to be special. It just needs to be a clean slate on special teams.
Yes, this is clean. Tennessee needs to have clean teams. Maybe not special teams. They need to have clean teams out there this Saturday.
Absolutely.
Ryan, I think this is a game where you see the Vanderbilt media pick Vanderbilt. Obviously, the Vanderbilt fans feel confident about Vanderbilt. I think you see a lot of the Tennessee media pick Tennessee, and I think you see a lot of the Tennessee fans obviously back their home team. And I think that both sides are justified in how they're feeling, what they do going into it, because it's a battle of the best Vanderbilt team and program history, who's 9-2 and wants to kind of burst into that final couple of spots in the playoffs versus a Tennessee team who, feels like, hey, we're the flagship program of this state, and we're going to defend our turf in doing so. Tennessee, obviously, no slouch either. So I think that both sides are going to be justified, but that's the way that I see it. And as a bit of a spoiler alert for Friday, I am going to be picking Tennessee. I feel pretty good about what Tennessee can do, and again, defending Neyland Stadium in this game, being able to continue the mini streak that you had brought up at the beginning of the show with Josh Heupel's undefeated record against the Commodores, 2 there, 2 here, and we'll see what happens. But I do think I'm going to be picking Tennessee. We'll see what Shump does. I think you might be in my boats as well, but we'll get all those predictions out on Friday morning.
Yeah, last week I was very on the wall about what I was going to do in that Florida game. I was like, anything could happen. I still maintain that. It still felt like anything could have happened when you went down there.
I saw a missile just miss the stadium.
Yeah,
it could have
almost happened. Yeah. I have a lot more conviction this week. I think Tennessee rolls, but we'll get into the details of all of that on Friday.
He's convicted. He's a convicted man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Ryan Shumpert will get his predictions in as well whenever he makes the trip back from Sin City. You're a convicted man. I would imagine that you're also going to be a hungry man on Thursday. Give me a quick rundown of what your Thanksgiving plans look like and what you're maybe most excited to eat.
Well, my little brother's a Lions fan, and my dad's a Cowboys fan. So it'll be a lot of football, and usually that's bad football, but maybe it'll be a little bit better football this year. We'll have to see. But you gotta thread the needle. You gotta find the right time to go down to the dinner table. Finish is the opening game a little close, because then you gotta wait for the beginning of the second game, or is that opening game a blowout? Because then maybe you try to finish it up in the fourth quarter there when things don't really matter as much. We got to figure out a way to thread the needle this Thursday.
Yeah, you do. And me and my family will not be doing that. In fact, I think that we're maybe taking I don't know if it's the worst route of possibility. We're eating late. We're eating after the Cowboys game.
That's horrible. But you eat dinner at like 8 p.m. anyway, so it's nothing.
Well, that had nothing to do with the decision. But yeah, that is true. You eat dinner like an elderly person. You eat at 5 o'clock in the
5 o'clock's dinner time.
I will say in the afternoon. That's crazy. That's ridiculous. That's regular dinner, not Thanksgiving dinner.
5 o'clock to 7 o'clock is the evening, and then 7 o'clock and later is at night. You're eating at night. I'm eating in the evening.
You're in the first percentile of the evening when you're eating. It's barely evening at all. But no, I have to My wife's got some things that she's got to take care of in the morning, and I'm not missing the Cowboys game this. I'm simply not
Well,
doing it. I've
you say
barely
that
been able
until
to
they're
watch
down
any.
20 at halftime. Then
I stuck
it's,
around on Sunday.
you did, you did. You showed some
You heard
resolve.
some of my reactions. I might have
Yeah, I
had
did.
some FCC unfriendly words when we were driving home from Gainesville in the car, but I stuck around and I was very happy I did. By the way, shout out to Emily Ray Cochran of
There you go.
WBIR, an Eagles fan, and I let her know yesterday all about my feelings about that game.
As you should.
As I should. So I'm going to also bookmark it now. This is the Rick Butler guarantee that the Kansas City Chiefs, the fraud of the NFL, they go down.
Wow.
They go down in
Wow.
Arlington. I think it might even be definitive. I think it
Clip
might
it.
even be absolute definitive. The Kansas City Chiefs dynasty. This could be a dynasty killing game.
Wow.
I'm just saying, with the world watching, this could be a dynasty killing game. End them once and for all. So I'm putting in my guarantee. Anyways, all right. Anything left on the table to get to for this Tennessee-Vanderbilt game?
No, I don't think so. I think we got, literally all three phases of the game, the implications. I think we're ready to get Saturday now.
All right. Well, of course, stay tuned to RockyTopInsider.com for all of your live coverage from the Tennessee-Vanderbilt game coming up this Saturday in Neyland Stadium. 3:30 p.m. will be broadcast on ESPN. We will have you covered. It should be the three of us there, Ryan Shumpert included. Also, make sure to stay tuned to Rocky Top Insider tonight as we're recording this Wednesday night. It is going to be Tennessee versus Kansas in a high-profile matchup from the Players Era tournament. I don't want to get started around the whole format thing, the championship thing, but
ridiculous.
it is absolutely criminal. Somebody
make
should
it a
maybe
bracket.
be jailed. Yeah, somebody should be jailed for Tennessee not playing this championship game. Though,
Yep.
I'm going to whisper this. Pretty happy not to be covering the 9:00 p.m. game tonight Eastern time. So that might be the only good thing to come out of it,
Yeah.
but it is absolutely criminal. Somebody should be jailed. Somebody should be sent to prison for the way that it's gone. Because if you beat Houston,
Prison.
That's ridiculous. Yeah, absolutely.
Solitary confinement.
Absolutely.
Yeah, straight jacket. Yeah, exactly.
Put him in a straitjacket. Just kidding. All right, that is going to wrap it up from us today. He's not. I am. He's a man of conviction. I'm only sometimes convicted. Otherwise, man, RTI podcast over on YouTube and where you get your favorite podcasts. We want to give a shout out to our great friends over at WATE. They have phenomenal sports coverage and local Knoxville and East Tennessee coverage over there. So be sure to check out WATE, including downloading the WATE 6 Plus Smart TV app. I know I have it. I know Ryan has it. We use it. You can also find our podcast there. And it's just a lot of great coverage from the sports gang over there. So make sure you're following along with them. Otherwise, I think that wraps it up. This right here is Ryan Sylvia. You can follow him at Ryan T. Sylvia. I'm Rick Butler. You can follow me at Rick_Butler. Ryan Shumpert bringing you basketball news from Sin City tonight. He is at rshump00 on social media himself. Otherwise, man, excited for this regular season finale coming up from Knoxville. Excited to get into the postseason slate. It won't be the playoffs like last year, but still a lot to talk about and a lot to get into. And then, hey, I'm pretty sure signing day is a week away from today as we record this as well. So you got the new class of Tennessee Volunteers who will be making their name known. Stay tuned to Rocky Top Insider for it all. Thank you so much for listening to the Rocky Top Insider Press Pass podcast today, and we will see you Saturday night after the game.